Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Friday, May 28th. This is your Daily Buckeye Fix. I'm Tom Moore. The Minnesota game is in 97 days, the game against Michigan in 183 days. It is easy to forget this now after watching the Buckeyes play for the national championship in January, but the 2020 Big Ten football season was never supposed to happen. The decision to cancel the season and all the behind-the-scenes conversations that led to that have basically been a mystery for most of the 9 months since they happened. But that all changed this week when Ohio State responded to a Freedom of Information Act request from Buckeye Scoop and other media outlets and dumped thousands of pages of emails and text messages to and from Ohio State administrators surrounding those decisions. We were going to do a show on this for Thursday morning, but it took quite a while to go through everything because it was 2,777 pages altogether. So I decided we can push that back to Friday and let Buckeye Scoop beat reporter Tony Gerdeman have a little more time to go through all of it. He is now finished, read every single last one of them. Tony, he joins me now. Tony, I guess let's start with a really interesting text message from Ohio State President Christina Johnson to Gene Smith asking if there was a way for the Buckeyes to play a season as an independent last year. That was one of those things that you kind of heard, but it was still like, wow, they really asked that question.
Yeah, it was interesting to learn that, like, where did the questions start and who all was asking them and who was looking for the answers. And that was Christina Johnson asking Gene Smith, can we go independent? And he replied, looking into it. And then eventually Kevin Warren, this isn't part of the release, but eventually Kevin Warren responds like, no, and if anybody wants to do independent would have to leave the Big Ten entirely or whatever. And so it was a no-go, but the fact that it was explored, I think was, it's significant and it's newsworthy and just shows you that Ohio State was not on board with canceling the season, because even after it was canceled, they're still looking for ways to play. And they believe they had the means to do it, to get it done. And, they tried. Nebraska also tried. And of course, both programs were shut down. Maybe the Ohio State and Nebraska should have just played 12 times.
Would have probably not changed the Buckeyes regular season record, but it is fascinating to look back on all this, knowing what we know now about, outdoor transmission rates and all that kind of stuff. Kevin Warren was not a particularly popular figure throughout that whole process, and there was really not much in that document dump that's probably going to change anyone's mind on any of that. My personal favorite was when he was convinced that the letter from the Ohio State Football Parents Association was a fake, some kind of, I don't know, Russian deep fake, something where they're hacking the Ohio. I don't know. It was just, that was like, that's a thing you could think. And it did not seem like something that Ohio State administrators were real happy about either.
Yeah, and that was, to me, that was the biggest thing that came from this was Christina Johnson, president of OSU, saying that Kevin Warren suggested or implied that the letter that the parents were planning to write or were in the process of writing was, I guess, maybe written for them by Ohio State or something to that effect. And one of the things I realized in just scrolling through all of this is the higher up you are, the less you have to write your own words about your release or your thoughts and your charges. And so I guess it makes sense that the commissioner of the Big Ten would think that somebody else is writing something for an entity, because people write stuff for him, just like people write stuff for President Johnson, just like people write stuff for Gene Smith. I wonder when the last time he wrote his actual words that were to be conveyed to a group of people. It legitimately may have been a while ago. Yes, he's going to scan everything and let's make some tweaks here. But like last time he crafted his own paragraph. And so, I'm sure he just figured, I'm sure Ohio State, there's no way an entity, a group of people can come to terms on one page of text that they all agree on. There's no way. I'm a commissioner of the Big Ten. I know that's impossible. But the parents did that. And Gene Smith was basically like, well, how would he even know if this is a fake letter or that we've foisted it upon him? And Christina Johnson is like, this is a serious charge. I don't like it. And it's an interesting back and forth about how unhappy they were without saying it, although she did say it, with Kevin Warren and his implications and just his, I guess, attitude towards the very fact that a group of people would be interested in, I don't know, playing or going against a ruling or just not falling in line with what has been set out for everybody to do.
One other thing that I think President Johnson and Athletic Director Smith were probably not super thrilled about was in those early conversations leading up to the decision, Christina Johnson was going to be on an airplane during one of the calls with the Big Ten. So she asked the Big Ten if Gene Smith could just represent her on the call. Can he step in? The Big Ten said that was Kevin Warren's decision. And Kevin Warren said, no, I will just fill you in later. That was another one that was just like, what? What is the possible problem here? And it was, he kind of pointed to, it seems like he pointed to like, well, technically this is a call of this group, so you have to be a member of this group. It was like, I mean, we're a little outside of the normal protocols and procedures here. So yeah, it just seemed like there was a lot that he did that just did not win him any friends.
Yeah, I believe that email was maybe for an August, that was on August 7th for an August 8th call. And they canceled the season on the 11th, I believe. Mm-hmm. And the email was, the reply was, I think, from Northwestern's president saying, yeah, it's up to Kevin. If he's okay with it, that's fine. And then no, you can't be at this on this call. And it's that was another remarkable one. And yes, we want everybody's feedback, but Ohio State, do you really even need to be here? I mean, who really are you anyway? So yeah, that was another one where I don't know that Ohio State being on that call or Gene Smith being on that call would have changed anything. But this was also a 2-month long complaint from Ohio State and other Big Ten schools about the lack of communication, like no direction from the Big Ten. This would have been an opportunity for Ohio State to have more direction from the Big Ten because they were certainly looking for it.
Yeah, and you wonder, I think Ohio State probably had made their feelings somewhat clear by that point. And if those were not Kevin Warren's feelings, you wonder if like, well, someone who's going to tell me I'm not the smartest boy in the room, like, well, maybe I don't mind not having them on their call. That wasn't in the emails. That's just my speculation. Warren also sent a letter to all of the Big Ten ADs on July 30th that said in part, and here's a direct quote, "Our duty is to explore any and all avenues that would give our student athletes a chance to compete in a safe and responsible manner. Our conference-only proposal gives us a good shot at doing just that. As discussed, if there is a viable path forward, we will do everything within our power to make that happen for our student athletes." Those are wonderful, uplifting words. Tony, you wonder who wrote them for him. But then 2 weeks later, less than 2 weeks later, they canceled the season. To me, and again, I'm just a lowly guy with the podcast, but that doesn't seem like it's in line with that July 30th memo to just, not even just kind of kick the can and say like, well, maybe we'll delay the season and give it a chance. 12 days later, like, nope, bye. Decision made, will not be revisited.
Yeah, it's the whole we've tried nothing and we're all out of ideas. And yet there were ideas being floated to him and discussed, and they certainly didn't exhaust all ideas or all ways to play football, because they ended up playing football after canceling the season. So clearly there was a way to do it that they must not have known about. It came up out, secretly or all of a sudden. And I think one of the disappointing things for the Big Ten is that they didn't anticipate improvements in technology and science and things at that time. It was a long time ago, but things were, 2 days ago, or in 2 days, something new is going to be developed to help advance something. And this, the timing on this goes from 2 hours to 15 minutes now. And that was happening pretty rapidly. And at that point, there was no reason to cancel, because where's the urgency? What are you saving by canceling at that point? And they weren't saving anything, because, there was still time to cancel later on if these things didn't happen, which is also what he said in that letter, where, if things don't progress well, then, we know we won't be able to play. And he also said that when they released the August, or the original schedule on August 5th, the second original schedule, like, yes, we love the schedule, but there is still a possibility we can't play. And then to really not twist the possibilities, or just try to squeeze as much as you could out of them, and just to, you know what, we're just not going to do it. And this is, we tried, but there's always next year, or there's always the winter and the spring.
Yeah, and there were a couple different proposals for a spring season that came out in this, and we had again seen some of these, heard about some of these, even at least some some details, and some of them we had a lot of details. Jeff Brom for Purdue had one. He released the whole thing that was all out last fall. The AD from Rutgers had one. The one that was interesting to me was a variation on something we had discussed last summer, the idea of playing in a bunch of hub cities with domes. So like Detroit, Indianapolis, St. Louis, Minneapolis, Syracuse, New York. It was like Rutgers and Maryland, and possibly Penn State will play in Syracuse. Michigan and Michigan State, and possibly Penn State, if they choose to do that instead, will play in Detroit. Indiana, Ohio State, Purdue, they'll play in Indianapolis, so on and so forth. To me, that was the biggest thing that like snapped me back to that time. That was like, you forget now, like they played the season. It was all pretty fine, but it was a really good reminder of just how crazy things were at that point and how many different proposals were floating around. And it was all just kind of like, yeah, this is completely crazy and unprecedented, but also like, yeah, this might be what saves the season.
Yeah, and I know we talked about being at a hub would be pretty cool. Like you get to watch like 3 games that day, and you just to be there, and who knows how many fans? 0. But it's so long ago to think of like all of the different things that were talked about and the way things turned out. I don't want to say it was a whole waste of time for all of these discussions and these proposals and these what ifs and these scenarios. It certainly wasn't a waste of time on our part, but if only they just stayed status quo on, and granted, they canceled the non-conference very early, I think back in July. But once they had gotten their conference schedule together, let's just see if that works and just write it out. And but all of these different pods with the winner, and Brian Day was talking like he was gung ho about it to the media way back when, and how maybe even the early enrollee high schoolers can play this spring and then in the fall, which I think eventually got nixed. But all of these never before seen, maybe it's going to happen. And then once the season gets canceled, Tom, like, okay, now our focus has to go to that winter season because that's the only other alternative until it wasn't.
Yeah. One of the fun parts of these is you get these, I think people sometimes forget their emails or texts are subject to FOIA, because you get these kind of like inside looks at like what these people are like behind the scenes and some more unfiltered opinions shared. I'm just going to share a couple of responses that I found amusing. One was from Gene Smith. This was in response to the Rutgers AD's proposal for a spring season. Here's the direct quote, the full email. Thanks, Pat. Appreciate the idea. Well thought out. Not something I could support, and will share my concerns on our call. Thanks, Gene. If you've ever heard the phrase "go to hell but enjoy the trip," that's what that is right there. That was just like, hey, this is pretty. Oh, there's a knife between my ribs. Oops. That was a good one. Another one was from Diana Sabo, who was at the time the senior deputy athletics director at Ohio State. She just went to work in the Big Ten office. She was responding to a proposal to move spring ball to the fall for teams that weren't playing as a compromise. Like, well, we're not going to play a season, but you can have a little fall ball season where you just get 15 practices. Her response in its entirety, quote, "Thank you for sharing the points below. It is absolute crap. A terrible competitive disadvantage, hours and games." Tony, I don't even have a question here. I just wanted to share those two.
I love the response to the Rutgers AD, because he was suggesting starting in like January. And, he had like, you could play a noon game on Super Bowl Sunday, and you can play games during the NFC and AFC Championship weekend. And it's like Gene Smith gets the emails like, oh, okay, I'm going to put this up on the fridge for you to see. And then like 2 minutes later, he puts like just some sort of a recipe over top of it. Like, yeah, good job. But no, it's never going to happen. But, thank you for your consideration. And then Gene probably records video of himself dragging the email to the trash and then emailing it back to the Rutgers AD, just so he knows. Like, I was waiting for like a response, like, who is this? Like, who do you think you're talking to? Is this? How did you get my email? And but yeah, that's until you're a full share partner, that's probably how you deserve to be treated. I don't know.
It shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. Rutgers has bad ideas about football. This is not news to anyone outside of maybe the Big Ten offices. Someone who had good ideas, Illinois Athletic Director Josh Whitman, he had the proposal that probably would have worked best, especially knowing what we know now, playing a 16-week season with 12 conference games spread throughout that time, 4 makeup weeks built in. I mean, starting on like August 29th and just going straight through. He also suggested moving the biggest games up to the start of the season to ensure that they got played. Here was the exact quote on that. From a value perspective, imagine the audience Ohio State, Michigan would draw in a week 0 opener with all the pent-up thirst people have in the country right now for sports. Literally, it could be the most watched regular season college football game in history. So I guess my question, Tony, is can Josh Whitman be the new Big Ten Conference Commissioner?
You know what? The Big Ten struck out on getting the AD from Northwestern to be, like he went off and did his own thing. Maybe you're right. Maybe go get the Illinois guy. Just stay in state, because apparently that's where all the great ideas come from. And that would have been 12 conference games built in. You got 4 bye weeks if you need them. And you don't have to put them in any hubs. You don't have to put them, don't have to go play in Syracuse. And that to me would have been ideal in terms of as ideal as last year could have gotten. 12 game schedule, and it's all conference play, and everybody gets 6 home games, which would have been part of the cons of doing that. In his bullet points was, some teams we're expecting 7. Well, home games will now only get 6. It's like, there are some teams that got 3 home games last year. So it's like things you have to dial back all of your expectations. And if you could still get 12 games in conference, all of them are going to be with a decent level of interest, since there's no Akron or, Central Michigan or Northern Iowa. These are all big time Big Ten programs. And there was another good idea that the Big Ten was like, you know what? Let's sit on this. Let's think about it for about a month and revisit it and see if we can't still get those 16 weeks in those, say, 9 weeks.
And if not, we can always send people to Syracuse, New York in February. What could possibly go wrong?
Might not be able to get them back, but we can get them there.
Yeah, we're going to fly around the upper Midwest and, lake effect snow belt in New York during the middle of winter. Cons, none at all, none possible. Were there any other good nuggets you wanted to share? I mean, there were some real doozies of emails from fans, but there was some other good stuff involving, from officials. Like what else of the 2,777 pages? What were some of your other favorites?
Just a lot of donors saying, if there's no football, you will not get another dime from me. And these are people who were saying, like, I've given money to this university or my family has since 1940, 1930, in the 20s, and how impacted they were that there may be no football. And then once the announcement came that there would be no football, then the anger was even more. And it also was interesting to see how Ohio State had to respond to a lot of these people who are big time donors. So it's like they can't just ignore these emails, and they do have to kind of explain themselves. And so there's a lot of back and forths there. Then a lot of suggestions on what they should do from fans. And there was one guy even was like, why aren't you guys ever responding to me about my lottery that I have come up with? And I think it was some sort of a newfangled 50-50 drawing that would provide the state with billions of dollars. And at the end of his email, I was like, I've also forwarded this on to Governor DeWine. And you're like, all right, I'm sure you have. And they're, people sending their emails with typos and then replying again saying, I had a typo in there. I just want you to know that on paragraph 42, sentence 3, what I actually meant to say was toward instead of towards. But now it makes more sense for you, as I'm sure, as you are reading all of these. And just a lot of feedback there, and just the sheer volume of everything. And not all of the 2,777 pages were important, because a lot of it is just duplications, because it could be one document being sent to 12 different people. And so you're getting all 12 documents, and it's like, well, but I also feel like, I don't know if this is true, Tom. I'm just going to editorialize or speculate to where maybe Ohio State had all of this in order, when they got it all together, but they didn't want to but they didn't give it to us in any order. So I'm thinking they kind of 52 pickup. They just auto randomized it and then shipped it off to us because there is no rhyme or reason to a whole lot of it.
There were also a couple of very helpful emails. There was one that looked like a spam email or some kind of an email for some sort of art project about a clarinet in a bag. That was like, how is this a responsive document to this request?
Well, I actually looked into that one a little bit. It was about that was part of a study on how far I think like spit goes from like talking or from a clarinet blowing. So there was just all kinds of little studies in there and how long it lasts in the air or how long it lasts from this distance and this temperature, just stuff you have to know when you are a clarinet conference.
That's a non-responsive document. Ohio State has no woodwinds in the band, so irrelevant. So get rid of that. The other one that I thought was extremely helpful was the email that was just entirely redacted. It was just nothing but blacked out lines. It was like, did this come from the CIA? Like what?
Well, the thing is, like, if we didn't get that, somebody would have been like, hey, I know that where was the redacted email that had all of the information that I was looking for that I knew I wouldn't get? And you tried to hide something from me.
Kevin Warren, secret proposal to play at Area 51. Now you know. The truth can now be told. Well, Tony, thank you for joining me. Thank you for reading through 2,777 pages so I didn't have to do all of it. I've read through much to most of it, but was happy to not have to do all of it. So thank you for doing the heavy lifting on that. And thank you guys all for listening. This has been, I hope you've enjoyed it. This is kind of a fun show. It's FOIA. I've done shows on FOIA before, and it's like, this is an important thing. It's really important to hold people to account, but also sometimes it's just really fun to get a look at what people are like behind the scenes who are good, nice and buttoned down in person. And sometimes you get a little bit more of an unfiltered look at what people are really like behind the scenes and how the sausage really gets made. So hope you guys enjoyed that one. You can find Tony did a really exhaustive, in-depth look at the whole thing on our Ask the Insiders board. Members can find that at buckeyescoop.com. We will, there's lots of good stuff there on this. We have a really, really fun, active, vibrant community there. And we're coming up a week from today is our first birthday, June 4th. So that's going to be this is going to be a fun week coming up. We will have probably some fun stuff for members. Maybe an in-person event. There's been rumors of an in-person event. We'll have to see if that plays out. But if you want to be there, you want to do all that fun stuff, you've got to be a member of buckeyescoop.com. Sign up today. If you sign up anytime before July 4th, you get to be entered in a drawing for 4 tickets to the Oregon game from Nevada Buck. That's a pretty good deal. And you also get a whole bunch of other fun membership benefits if you sign up before June 4th. So you're a member within that first year. There's some other fun benefits that come with that. So check that all out today at buckeyescoop.com. Also, make sure you check out all of our great podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify. Just search Buckeye Scoop to find all of those. Alex Gleitman just dropped a great episode of Around the Oval yesterday, talking about JT Tuimoloau, and also 3 guys from the state of Ohio in the class of 2022 or 2023, who are really kind of must-get guys, like 3 really big names that Ohio State really has to kind of buckle down and make sure they land all 3 of those guys. They can't take them for granted. That was a great conversation. So make sure you check that one out. And finally, youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. Great content there. All of our podcasts, interviews with players, coaches, camp highlights, it's all there. youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. Hit that subscribe button and you get notified every time we post a new video. And then you'll never miss a thing. That, of course, is all free because it's YouTube. There will be no show on Monday. You guys get a day off. I also get a day off, but it's mostly you. This is mostly about you. Take that day off on Monday. We'll be back on Tuesday with another show. It is going to be a busy week next week with the start of visits. Buckeye Scoop's first birthday. It is going to be a busy and very fun week. So check that all out next week. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We will talk to you on Tuesday.